K-12s, welcome to episode 172 of Seahawks Now. I'm Aaron Coe. This is where we dive into the news and analysis of everything Seattle Seahawks, your Super Bowl 60 champions. Make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast. It is free to you, but it helps us out an awful lot. Let's dive into what's going on right now. So the big news is we have a new offensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks, and that is Brian Fleury coming over from the 49ers. So it looked like for a while it was going to be an internal situation with a Outen or somebody like that. But they brought in a couple of guys, including Brian Fleury from the 49ers. And it sounds like he really knocked their socks off, and they were very impressed with his plan and what he had to offer. So it should be a smooth transition. He came from the 49ers, similar system to Kubiak. So it shouldn't be too hard for everybody, Sam Darnold and company, to learn that, to the nuances of how he does things. The language will be the same and all those sorts of things. So it should be a pretty smooth deal there. Next best thing as far as keeping that continuity going versus bringing in, keeping one of the internal guys and promoting them. So it's been pretty interesting to see it. I really thought they would go internal, but they really liked what they saw from Fleury. And the more I dig into it, the more I like the hire. So he started out on the defensive side of the ball. He was a QC coach with Buffalo in 2013 after he spent some time coaching in college. He's about 46 years old, I believe. Then he coached linebackers in Cleveland for a couple years. Cleveland having some good defenses, not the offenses, not so much, but he had no hand in that, so don't blame him for the Cleveland offense. And then he went to the 49ers in 2019 after some time with the Dolphins, where he was the offensive QC, tight ends. Then he became the running game coordinator this past season. He was heavily involved, though, in the running game prior to getting that actual job title. He had done that for a bit. So here's what I really like about Fleury. I keep wanting to say McFlurry because it's McDonald and Fleury. So we got the McDonald McFlurry going on here. Hey, what can be bad about that, right? But it felt like he was a real candidate when he came in. So I wasn't completely surprised about that he got that opportunity. And he has experience on both sides of the ball, which I think is appealing to McDonald. You need those guys to really work together, and sometimes a purely offensive guy and a purely defensive guy, their heads can butt a little bit because the philosophies can be a little bit different. But I think maybe Fleury, because he has done that, has just might have a little bit more understanding of how to work complementary football with that defense. And that's really important to McDonald. He mentions that a lot, complementary football. You have a good punt, the offense moves the ball, the defense does its job when it has to, it all works together. He believes that all three parts of that football team should blend well together and work off of each other. I don't know how many times he has said complementary football in press conferences. I definitely would not be able to count that high, even if I took my shoes off. I think it'll be similar to what we saw last year. You're not going to see just bombs away all the time, but they'll take some shots when they're there. I think we'll see a continued growth of that running game in the second year. I'm assuming John Benton sticks around to be the offensive line coach. He has worked with Fleury before, so that should work very well together. And I think that'll be a great setup there. And I think just having that second year of that system in place with that outside zone running game, we'll continue to see that offensive line grow. Even if they don't add any pieces to that line, we saw it improve over the course of the year. And I just think a second year, that's only going to get better as they get used to that system and learn to work together with that. There are some things that maybe we have some concerns about Fleury. So here's some things that I may, why I may not absolutely love it, at least from the get-go. So again, I was surprised that they didn't go with an internal candidate, and that can be a little bit interesting. You wonder, will there be any issues with the guys that kind of got passed over for that? I'm assuming they're mature enough to understand the situation, and maybe they're comfortable in the roles that they have. But that's always a little bit, you bring in a new guy to oversee the other guys that were already on offense. And will they all mesh together? But really the big concern is he's never called plays before, to my knowledge. So he's going to have to show that he can do that. Now, obviously, McDonald and Schneider trust that he can get that done, but to this point, he has not done it. So we've seen this before. Remember Ryan Grubb? I think a lot of people were excited when he came over from Washington, thinking, "Wow, they had one of the top offenses in college. He can bring that over, get Geno Smith going." And a lot of people were concerned about it too, but some people were excited about that possibility. But Ryan Grubb never adjusted. And there's an art to calling plays in the NFL. And if you've never done it before, I think it's something that you kind of learn as you go. And then also, just for Grubb, just the transition from the college game was not necessarily an easy situation. So that will be kind of an interesting thing. So though he has a defensive background, he still could butt heads with a defensive head coach. He worked with an offensive head coach in the 49ers, with his head coach there. So that could be a little bit of a challenge because, again, different philosophies, they have kind of a different mentality sometimes. And though he can understand what Mike McDonald is thinking, he may not always agree with, hey, why can't we go for it here? Why are we punting here? Why are we being conservative on 3rd and 13? Why don't we try to, really get that first down? Where McDonald may be thinking, hey, let's get a few more yards and have our punter, our all-world punter, best punter in the game, in my opinion, Michael Dixon, pin people deep. We saw that in the Super Bowl, right? As not the Packers, the Patriots at the 2-yard line, the 4-yard line, the 6-yard line, made it impossible for them to move the ball. So that could be a situation for McDonald where maybe they don't always agree with that. So will this work? That's the big question, right? Was this the right hire? To me, again, I'll say it again. I was surprised they didn't go with Alton or somebody else already on staff, but I'm going to, again, trust McDonald and Schneider. They must have felt like those guys weren't quite ready to take on those roles. None of them had really called plays in the NFL to any significant degree either. So they must have felt like, hey, this was a better guy coming in. He really impressed us in interviews. It is a little bit of a gamble, as I mentioned, because of that play calling experience. But yeah, I think overall, again, if they felt like he can do it, and he's shown that I'm sure they quizzed him and, hey, what's your play script look like? I'm sure it'll work out well. His experience in San Francisco should be very valuable. I think, obviously, as much as you may not like the 49ers, you have to admit they've had some pretty good offenses over the years. Even banged up this year. They've been able to run the ball forever, almost no matter who they have back there, whether it's MCC or somebody else. So you gotta like that part of it. But hey, we're not going to know right away. We're not going to know in the preseason. It may be a little bit of a slow start as he adjusts in the first few games, and it'll really come down to what does it look like, when we get halfway through the season. What does it look like late in the season? What does it look like in a big game? Does he call the right plays in those key situations? And then again, does he get along with McDonald? Do they mesh well together and get that complementary football going? So again, I'm going to trust McDonald and Schneider. I feel like they know what they're doing. They've proven it. Hell, they just won a Super Bowl, right? So, I think Schneider won the Executive of the Year, and McDonald should have been Coach of the Year, in my opinion. I understand why he didn't get it because they were 10-7 last year, but you've got two of the best in the game, so I'm going to trust their evaluation of this situation. So that's about it for this one. It'll be exciting to see what Fleury can do with this offense. Thanks for checking out Seahawks Now. Remember to like and subscribe. This is Aaron Coe, and go Hawks.